This is the North Carolina Rabbit Hole. I'm Jeremy Markovich, and this week, let's do that hockey.
5 seconds away. Played out, and the Carolina Hurricanes are the best in the NHL. Won 2026 Stanley Cup. It's yours, Carolina, and it's coming back to North Carolina. The Stanley Cup. We got a passenger on the plane tomorrow, and the Hurricanes are world champions.
The Carolina Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup for the first time in 20 years. That is a big deal all on its own, and plenty of people have spent the week afterward just, taking apart the team, the fans, the run, the playoffs. But I thought to myself, what is the most rabbit hole angle of this run? Like, what is the thing that is inconsequential enough, but actually maybe contains multitudes? And I found that story on the shoulder of the actual away jerseys for the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, if you have not seen this, basically what I can describe to you is a cartoon pig that is kind of in mid-stride. He is wearing a sweater with a Carolina Hurricanes C on it. It has the kind of like the actual like hurricane flags in the C. He's kind of smirking. He has a sailor hat on it that says Canes. And this logo is known as Struttin Stormy. And it is very much unlike anything else in the NHL today. There's not. So I got curious. How did Struttin Stormy end up on the jersey that is now going to be immortal, that is now going to be pictured in every single image of every single Carolina Hurricanes player raising the Stanley Cup in 2026? How did it get there? Well, that story took me to a place that I did not expect, very far away from North Carolina, to a small town in South Dakota. But before we get there, let's start here. To you, what is the greatest Canes tweet of all time?
Oh, man. I wasn't ready for that question. There's a couple that I'm very partial to that still will make me giggle. When we unveiled our previous road uniform with the diagonal word mark on it several years ago, the Rangers commented on it, like implying that we were not being creative by having a diagonal word mark across the front of the jersey. And I remember sitting in my office thinking about what's the best reply to that. And what I came up with was it's a huge honor for the inventor of diagonal to tweet at us, something like that. And then it became like a meme a little bit after that. So always liked that one. Really was passionate about the cameo video we did against the Devils.
Hey, Carolina, this is Mauro from Carlos Bakery, home of the Cake Boss.
It is happening, guys. Big Daddy Sitch.
I love it. So listen, congratulations. I'm moving on.
Good luck in the future. With love, from the Jersey Shore. Now that right there is an awesome situation.
Is this your personality? Are you like, I am going to troll you in a way that you're like, I don't know if I'm mad. I'm kind of impressed.
I mean, you've known me a long time,
yeah,
Jeremy. I don't make fun of my friends. I don't make fun. I try not to, but it is like when you represent a team, especially in a market like the Carolinas, where it's like the first generation of fans, and there's always a much needed chip on the shoulder too, because it's like a smaller market, hasn't been around as much. It's the New Jersey in me to stick up for people, but that's, it's probably not my personal style of humor. It's just, it's marketing.
Yeah. At this point, I will introduce you. You are Dan LaTorraca, who, like, if you had to say of, like, the most accessible way that people might know your work is you were the voice behind the Canes when it came to Twitter and so much else. But what else did you do when you were working with them?
With the Canes, by the time and before I left, was overseeing a couple departments. So it was our overall marketing, which contained like digital and traditional branding and advertising, as well as our creative services team, which was anything design and production related, whether it was graphic design, and that could be anything from flyers and signage to uniforms, to photography, video production, in-game content production, project management associated with this, motion, and then retail was the other piece there. Where that was obviously, the great merch that we sell from Bunch of Jerks to all the other fun things as well.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today, other than like just your feelings about watching the Canes win the Stanley Cup, which I cannot get enough of. But one of the things that I thought was interesting, and you and I had just sort of chatted about, was this little cartoony logo that showed up on the shoulder of the away uniforms this season. It's a pig, because that's what Stormy is. The mascot is a pig. But he is dressed in a particular way, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this has a very different vibe than anything else that I think I've seen in maybe professional sports. It's called Struttin' Stormy. I know this. And so, like, how did they get from, like, somebody's brain to now it's going to be on every picture of every 2026 Stanley Cup image?
I've been giggling and texting a few people about that for the past week now, because it's wild. But to give you the full timeline of it, I'm a creative at heart for sure. And I also grew up in the Northeast. And when I first moved down to the Carolinas to work for the Panthers, some of the first questions people would ask me when getting to know me, they were like, "Where'd you go to school?" And, they always expect to hear like a Power 5 school. And I am a proud University of Scranton and Canisius College, or Canisius University, excuse me, alum. That's a D3 school in Scranton, and that's a small D1 school in Buffalo. And look, college athletics are not a huge deal in the Northeast. I grew up a pro sports fan. But I never realized how, it's big in the Southeast and the Carolinas. College sports are a huge deal. But until you have that culture shock, it blew me away. It was as big of a part of your identity as anything else. And your allegiances, your upbringing, all that, just blown away by the college sports fandom and culture here. And I always was drawn to that like vintage Struttin logo. There's obviously a lot of marketability in nostalgia. Anyway, long rambling way of saying, was always blown away by the college sports culture and loved that design, and was always a little envious too. And I often would look at sports design forums and things like that, and always had the idea of doing something like this. But then it really clicked when I saw this one artist on the sportslogos.net message board who specialized in this, and his name is Hettinger. Lives out in South Dakota. Really loved his work, so I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to reach out to this person and see if they'd be interested in working with us on this.
Ross Hettinger. I'm primarily a art teacher at a middle school in Aberdeen, South Dakota, but I also do mascot logo design. I've been drawing since I was very little, and actually went to school starting out to be for graphic design, but then kind of shifted towards regular visual arts, did painting and sculpture and that kind of stuff, and then ended up changing again to art education because I had a lot of teachers in my family, so I got in with the school district here pretty much right after I graduated. So I've actually been at the same school for 15 years now.
How did you get into designing these retro mascots? Like, how did that come about?
Other than drawing as I was growing up, I was also in sports. Pretty much every sport that I could be in, I always was, because I was actually a ranch kid. I grew up on a ranch, and so if I didn't have a sport to do after school, then I went home and had to, pitch hay and do chores and stuff. So I was very into sports, always into basketball and football and things like that, and that kind of was my bridge between art and sports, were the sports logos. And over time I ended up finding Chris Creamer's sports logo boards online, and so I would put concepts on there and stuff. I kind of shifted towards the more vintage style ones, especially the college ones, because they have such a nostalgic feel to them, and I don't know, there's just that it just doesn't feel that way anymore, the logos that come out. And so I actually started just finding any images that I could of them, and I've kind of made myself a database of different college mascots. I made a jackrabbit for my alma mater, SDSU, and I did it in a more vintage style. That kind of jumped it off, and I thought, well, there's probably other schools out there that don't have a vintage logo with a sailor hat. And so I did like a deer and a bison and a pronghorn, just because from where I live, those are animals around here. And those are animals that I've drawn realistically many times.
So, I mean, sound like you went to school for this, but also in some ways, in this particular discipline, you might be a little more self-taught.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would say so.
Were you getting, were people at the different schools, getting attention for this?
Yeah, more like the fan bases and stuff.
Yeah.
I would post some things as T-shirt designs and stuff, and people liked those. And then, on the sports logo boards, people really liked them on there, too, and more than I actually knew. I actually found out later that more people were liking them than I had ever realized. So it's just one of those things where I had it in my head, so I always had to make it and put it out there and move on to the next thing. But it's just kind of a compulsion almost to create them. And it's gotten a lot further than I thought.
Yeah. How did Struttin Stormy come about?
Dan LaTorraca. Oh, I think he first contacted me in the end of 2021 and just, said, hey, I saw your stuff on the sports logo boards and wanted to see if you'd be interested in doing this. And I said, absolutely.
My intention was it'll be a fun retail play. Something we can throw on a T-shirt, a car decal, hat, sweatshirt, just something fun because it fits with the Canes' unique brand. We're in a college sports mecca in the Triangle. The Canes, in the Courage as well, the pro teams here in the Triangle unify the different college fan bases, which obviously have a bitter rivalry. It's ownable, unique to the brand, the way that tailgating is because of the college culture that exists in the region. It just was a natural, fun, fit way, a way to nod to the colleges, to create something that's uniquely ours in the NHL, and, to sell some fun, cool merch. And that's what it's all about within sports is, doing things that fans will like and enjoy. And sometimes you can do stuff that you enjoy too. So found this artist. He was fantastic to work with.
I think it was in February of 22 that I sent my first pass of Stormy. And so I just sent him a picture of the sketch that I did. And after we got the look kind of figured out in pencil, I scanned it in and, I got my line work done and started sending them some different color samples on how the colors could be arranged. And he took those to his team and they figured out how they wanted that to look. And that was, it was a pretty smooth process actually compared to some stories I've heard.
What is it like to get a call from a pro sports team that is coming to you? It sounds like maybe your mindset was more like, I'm just going to kind of do this because I think it's kind of fun and cool and it's something I feel like I need to do.
Yeah.
And then an actual team says, can you do that but for us?
Disbelief, essentially, he's not really with the Canes because I'd been burned before not with people claiming to be from a sports team, just projects that they say, hey, can you do this? And then, I never hear from them again kind of thing. And so I looked him up and I was like, oh, he worked with the Panthers and now he is with the Carolina Hurricanes here. He's linked to them. So yeah, it was pretty surreal.
Is there ever any thought you're like, how did they find me, an art teacher in South Dakota?
I don't get a lot of commissions all over the place. I've done a few high schools and I did work for the University of Tennessee just in the last couple of years. But at the time that this was happening, this was, my first it was kind of a cold call in a way, they cold called me. And I'd been putting out cold calls to teams, for a long time. Is there any chance you guys would be looking to do a vintage or a throwback style thing? And, I'd either get the direct no or just never hear from them. But it was just kind of crazy in a way. It wasn't even work on my part, but I was putting out a lot of stuff and putting it on boards, and then I had a kind of a portfolio page, and so every once in a while I would just do a random Google of a vintage sports logo, and quite a few of mine would pop up in search results.
I don't know if compulsion or obsession with these logos is the right word, but that ends up turning out to be a pretty good SEO strategy, right? If you want to show up well in Google results, just draw for this kind of work, then just draw a bunch of them and put them online, and eventually yours starts showing up alongside the actual vintage ones.
Yeah, I mean, and that was never a true strategy on my part, but it just kind of ended up working out that way. And where Stormy is now is not what I ever expected either.
A lot of fans saw this vintage Stormy thing in the store, and they were like, "Oh, this has to be for the Stadium Series." It wasn't, which led to some fun, like, organic posting and word of mouth of this thing getting out there. And we didn't, confirm or deny. It just ended up being something that took off a life of its own, and fans loved it and embraced it. And it wasn't something we used a ton in our media or our content. It was just a fun retail play. And when Doug Warf became team president a couple of years back, he really liked the design.
Name is Doug Warf. I am now a senior advisor to Governor Stein. In this period, I was the president of the Carolina Hurricanes. I did 2 different stints with the Canes. I did a kind of a 17-year stint to start that ended in 2017, where I left as VP of marketing, and then I came back as president. I'll take a little bit of a step back. What we called Struttin Stormy is Dan LaTorraca's brainchild. So they created that. Mike Foreman, the marketing team, had the idea for it, had Ross Hettinger design it, while I was kind of in my time in between working for the Canes. So I was a fan when the mark came out. And it's one of those that, as the marketing side of my brain, when I saw it, I was like, man, I love that. And was kind of envious that I didn't think of it. So I kind of always loved the mark. When I came back in, started in July, unbeknownst to me, they had made some iterations or attempts to change the road jersey. And the owner and our team really loved the 2023 Stadium Series jersey. And the idea was kind of creating the inverse for that, for a road jersey. And the key things that weren't done yet were the shoulder patches. One was kind of easy. The fans have always loved the state flag. We put that on a third jersey years ago, and has kind of always been a fan favorite. The other shoulder was the one that was a little bit more challenging, and I brought up Struttin Stormy. Dan loved it because it was kind of his brainchild. I think in the past, I didn't know this immediately, but I think there had been 1 or 2 folks at the NHL who didn't always love the logo. So I think that was where where they needed me to do a little fighting for Struttin Stormy.
What does that look like? Like, how do you get them to go along with something that you think is great, but they're a little bit iffy about?
You got to be a good salesperson, Jeremy. I think it helped that our team was really bought in on it. Our owner liked it. Tom always likes to push the envelope a little bit. And I do think the mark is, I don't want to call it irreverent, but it's just different. And there are folks in the league sometimes who slightly averse to change. So it was just letting them know, hey, we're all behind this. We all want to do it. And also our fans are behind it. We were able to talk about how well some of the merch had sold. And I think that helped convince, but it was also one of those things that I didn't really want to back down from. So I knew it wasn't something that they could withhold from the jersey because it didn't violate any of their rules. And even if you throw it back, I mean, Pucky the Whale was on Whalers jersey shoulders at some time. So it's not like it's this ridiculous idea that had never been done.
But ultimately, it took some internal pushing and some good thinking, and it ended up on a uniform. And once something is on a uniform, then it's like really officially part of your brand. Then it's part of NHL history, which is what we're seeing now. Is that this uniform that came together really quickly, that had a fun cartoon pig on it, is now immortalized forever with the Stanley Cup win of the Carolina Hurricanes. And to me, that's it's awesome. We've seen people get tattoos of it now, and it was all just a little fun idea. And that's the beauty of sports marketing, is that some little spark like that can turn into something really, really special and sometimes immortal.
What's it like to see that team win this Stanley Cup? Like, what does that mean to you from your vantage point?
Well, winning the Stanley Cup is one thing. Having the community support the team has right now, I think, is what those of us who worked there in the early days take so much pride in. There were a lot of foundational bricks that were laid in the 02 run, the 06 run, 2009, 2011 All-Star game that were hard, right? That was back when we were scrounging around for fans and going to events where 3 or 4 people would show up. 2006, my own family who live kind of spread around the Carolinas, I had a family member call me and say, hey, it's great that you guys have a female that plays on the team. And I was like, hey, not against that, but we don't. What makes you think that we do? And she's like, well, they keep saying Brenda Moore is playing really well. And, that's where we were in 2006. That was my own family, as to an education point of what the NHL was. And now to see, for road games where the Lenovo Center is sold out, there's probably another 15,000 people outside. There's 7,000 people at Red Hat. There's watch parties at every bar. I mean, like tears of happiness from that, whether we won the cup or not.
You think it's kind of cool that an idea that came up that you brought into reality with a lot of help is now part of like every image of the Canes raising the cup in 2026 is going to have this little logo on it, right? Like this little thing on the shoulder.
I hope it is the symbolism of kind of us against the world a little bit for our fans. And I think that's what we thought of when we were putting it on, is that we knew that almost all of our fans would love this and would get the homage to whatever college they're aligned with in North Carolina. And so I think that's what I hope, is that there's this little bit of bunch of jerks that comes through with that logo being on the shoulder that we all playfully love.
It goes from being like t-shirts, which are, t-shirts are very cool. And now it's like you can, and maybe you already have, bought a jersey with your logo on it.
I mean, the only word that comes to mind is like surreal. It's just like, I still have a hard time coming to terms with it. It's like I was watching the Stanley Cup finals every chance that I could get the TV from my kids. And I'd point out, hey, look, see that on the shoulder? That's that thing that's on that shirt that Dad has. My kids are just like, oh, that's cool. Like, can we turn our shows back on now? I don't want to feel like a salesman all the time. Like, hey, look at my stuff, it's over there. Or, I don't boast about that kind of stuff, or try not to. But I'd love to be able to just tell everybody, hey, you see that? That's me. That meme of Leonardo DiCaprio from
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, where he's snapping his fingers and pointing at the TV. Like, I feel like that all the time.
Yeah. Do your art students know about this?
Yeah. I inform them, and I have some hockey players and stuff in my classes, and they think it's pretty cool. But they're middle schoolers, so they don't want to let the teacher know that what they think what the teacher does is too cool.
Yeah. So, like, as the guy who designed it and put this thing into the world, like, what does that mean to you?
Looking at all those vintage logos, they were all designed by Arthur Evans from the Angelus Pacific Company way back when, and nobody knows of him, but he's designed about 90% of all college mascots, and nobody really knows him. You can search it up and figure it out, but that's kind of where I feel like I'm going to end up falling with Stormy. It's like I'll always know that was mine, that I created that, and I feel like a lot of people won't, and it'll be one of those things that, oh yeah, hey, by the way, I did this. Really? That's crazy,
Many thanks to Doug Warf and Ross Hettinger and Dan LaTorraca. If you would like to see some pictures of Struttin' Stormy or read the version of the story that, you just listened to, you can find that at ncrabbithole.com. There, you can also sign up for my free weekly newsletter. If you like it, it is about North Carolina stuff that's kind of weird, but somewhat endearing. It's important and also not important. Contains multitudes. That is at ncrabbithole.com. And if you like what you have been reading there, why not, support this newsletter, this podcast? You can click on upgrade or go to ncrabbithole.com/upgrade and become a subscriber. It really does help this thing keep going. I really appreciate all of that, and I appreciate you for listening. I'm Jeremy Markovich. This is the North Carolina Rabbit Hole, and I'll see you next time.